Night settled warmly over Minneapolis on August 27, 2025, the kind of summer morning where sunlight filtered softly through the trees and the city felt unhurried, calm, almost sacred. At Annunciation Catholic Church, parents and teachers guided hundreds of students up the steps for the traditional school year. Opening Mass, the building glowed in soft gold, stained glass windows shimmering like jewels. Inside, there carried the quiet rustle of uniforms, whispered greetings, and the gentle preparation of a community gathering not just for worship, but for unity. Children swung their legs beneath wooden pews, teachers straightened hymnals, the choir rehearsed. A few last notes as the organist placed her hands on the keys. Everything felt ordinary, beautiful, and safe, but safety can be an illusion. At 9:17 a.m., the heavy wooden doors at the back of the sanctuary slammed open. The sound echoed through the vaulted ceiling, turning heads, silencing whispers. For a moment, everyone assumed it was a late arrival, a parent rushing in, but then eyes widened, voices caught. A ripple of dread moved through the congregation. A man stood in the doorway holding a semi-automatic rifle, his posture rigid, his expression hollow, his presence wrong in every way a soul could feel wrong. The first shot tore through the sanctuary before anyone could scream. The explosion of gunfire ricocheted off stained glass. Sunlight fractured into shards of color dancing chaotically in the smoky air. Children dove beneath pews, their screams swallowed by the deafening rhythm of shots. Teachers wrapped their arms around trembling bodies, shielding them with everything they had. Hymnals spilled across the tile floor, pages fluttering like startled wings. A bullet struck the marble near the altar, fragments flying like sparks. Another lodged in the pew where moments earlier a row of seventh graders had been whispering. The organist ducked, hands over her head, as splinters rained down. The priest grabbed two altar servers and dragged them behind the altar, whispering prayers through terror-shaken breaths. Parents threw themselves over their children. One mother pressed her face against her son's ear, whispering, "Don't look. Stay down. I'm right here." Though her voice trembled with fear she tried to cage inside her chest. The gunman advanced down the aisle, firing into shadows, into movement, into anything that made a sound. Witnesses would later describe his expression as blank, distant, like his mind had detached from the horror his hands unleashed. Smoke drifted upward, mixing with the colors from the stained glass, creating an almost surreal haze of chaos and sorrow. Students whispered desperate prayers. Others sobbed uncontrollably. In the pews near the front, teacher laid her body over 6 children, refusing to move even as bullets cracked through the wood behind her. A father tackled his daughter behind a column, his arm bleeding as he held her tight. Outside, the first 911 calls rang out, panicked, broken voices begging for help. Dispatchers struggled to decipher screams, cries, and jumbled descriptions of a man shooting into a church filled with children. Police cars sped through Minneapolis neighborhoods, sirens slicing through the morning calm, racing toward an unthinkable scene. Inside the church, the air vibrated with terror. Then came a moment of silence. The shooter paused to reload. A retired firefighter, who had been sitting near the aisle, saw his chance, heart pounding, breath shaking. He lunged at the gunman, grabbing him from behind. The rifle clattered to the floor. They crashed into the pews, struggling violently. The attacker pulled a handgun, but another parish volunteer tackled him from the side, then another, until 3 adults held him down with every ounce of strength left in their bodies. A single shot rang out. Then the shooter went still. By the time police stormed through the doors, the sanctuary was a landscape of trauma. Dozens lay injured across pews and aisles. Blood stained the marble. Communion cloths were scattered like abandoned flags. A small shoe lay alone near the choir steps. The air was thick with smoke, dust, and sobbing. 3 people were dead, including the perpetrator. Officers carried children from the building, some too shocked to speak, some screaming for their parents. Teachers stumbled out clutching students, their faces wet with tears. Paramedics triaged victims on the church lawn as helicopters thundered overhead. Parents collapsed in relief when they found their children, and collapsed in grief when they didn't. By noon, Minneapolis was a city in mourning. Reporters whispered updates from the sidewalks. News vans lined the streets. Photographers captured the heartbreak of parents holding onto their children with trembling hands. The story spread across the country within hours. The school-wide mass turned into a massacre. A semi-automatic rifle fired in a sanctuary filled with students. A church transformed into a crime scene. Debates ignited instantly. Gun control, school security, mental health, the vulnerability of religious spaces, the fragility of peace. But inside the community, far from national arguments, the grief was raw and deeply personal. Teachers gathered in quiet rooms, unable to process how a morning meant for prayer had become the darkest chapter of their lives. Parents checked on their children every few minutes, terrified to look away. Students walked the hallways with shoulders hunched, flinching at loud sounds. The church's tall wooden doors, once symbols of safety and welcome, now stood as reminders of how quickly innocence could be shattered. Investigators combed through evidence, piecing together the shooter's path, his motives, the weapons he carried, the moments leading up to the attack. They found fragments of turmoil, signs of planning, traces of a life spiraling inward. But no detail, no psychological footprint, no explanation felt big enough to account for the devastation he left behind. In the days that followed, the church steps overflowed with candles, flowers, and handwritten notes. Many came from children whose spelling wobbled but whose grief was clear. I love you. I'm scared. Why did this happen? The choir director placed sheet music for the song they were meant to sing that morning. Be not afraid. Vigils filled the nights with soft candlelight and trembling voices. The priests spoke of healing, of turning darkness into compassion, of holding each other close as they found their way forward. Parents hugged strangers, teachers held hands, children clung to their families. Minneapolis moved slowly, tenderly, each step forward heavy with memory. For those who lived through it, August 27, 2025 will forever be the day peace shattered in a place built for prayer, and the day a community proved how fiercely it could hold one another in the aftermath.